Good morning to everybody, Shalom Ubracha, and welcome. And for all those who want to put their fingers in the middle and things like that, you can do that, no problem. Chazde Hashem. So let's just take a minute, change and transition. Take a moment, change and transition. There's the Olam HaChitzoni, the world which we call Das Tachtoin Chitzoni, to be aware of our outer world, outer realm. And then we have Das Tachtoin Pnimi, that which is going on in our inner world. And there's a balancing act that we want to create. So for example, in our minds, maybe you've experienced this before. In our minds, I have a goal to accomplish something. And the goal to accomplish something is a davar chitzoni. I want to accomplish something. But then what happens? I don't accomplish it because all of the things get in the way. And what typically are all of those things? So sometimes they could be real things that get in the way, like, 100%. But what we may find that pretty much most of the time, thoughts are getting in the way that we're not aware of, or feelings are getting in the way that we're not aware of. And that delays us from this internal and external yichud. That if we think about it, as we become more aligned, Naran, Neshama, Ruach, and Nefesh, and when I have a goal I want to achieve and I can do a proper check-in, then what should be is that through being undistractable, through being really focused, the wanting is that I can carry through actually what I want. But what happens is we have a schedule, and many a time on our schedule, there's things I want to accomplish, and I look back and they're not accomplished. I wanted to do this, and for some reason it didn't happen. I wanted to do that. And as I said, sometimes there's other reasons that then take priority. So the nakuda of conscious prioritizing is something really important. And if you have to pivot, redirect, and make a conscious choice to reprioritize something, that's okay. That's part of Avodas Hashem. But how many times are we in a situation when we just wanted to do something and it didn't happen? Do you know what I'm speaking about? You ever done this before?
Yeah.
Oh, you've done it before?
I actually happen to have.
Such a loser. Mamish, you're not Matukan. I'm not going to do this to Mrs. Schulman because she'll burn me up. No. But it's the nature of life. So change and transitioning is what? Change and transitioning is having the capability, which is, it's really difficult to meet and allow your inside world to catch up with your outside world. So I'm now here. So change and transition. Take a moment, take a breath, and just notice you are here. Das Tachtoin Chitzoni. I'm just in this space. I'm now engaging in this activity. Das Tachtoin Chitzoni. And I would suggest it's very important, and it could alleviate a lot of anxiety. A lot of anxiety. Anxiety is a little bit of an anomaly. It's definitely a sign of not being aligned. However, anxiety is a feeling you sometimes feel that you don't know where it came from. It just comes up. And a lot of the time, we may think our thoughts about anxiety, but that feeling that we may feel is a communication. And as we learn to connect to ourselves, this is moving into Das Tachtoin Pnimi, the wanting is we can then read healthily that really awkward feeling. I wonder if we do a test, I think that, for example, your generation, you're my parents' generation, your generation is a very different biologically wired system than my generation. So typically, that generation didn't feel anxiety in our bodies the way our generation does, and specifically younger generation. Like my kids' generation, for some reason there's a change, there's a shift, whether it's sociological, I don't know, that's a conversation within itself. But Lamashal, it'll be very interesting to ask you what you think about your grandchildren's generation. And probably it'll be very similar to what my parents say. So there seems to be this shift, this movement, but that's as well picked up within us biologically. There's certain markers, and Lamashal, if I said to my parents certain things my kids said to me, my parents will say to me, just get on with life. Like, okay, be responsible. Come on, get on. And it's different. And our avodah, and this is something ever so important. We speak about this, and it's something that's sometimes missed. Our avodah is to look out at the world. We have to look out at each generation, and it's a very foreign language to a lot of people, by the way. But you'll again, I'm asking you to question. I'm asking you, don't take for granted. But it's an avodah. Part of avodas Hashem is to look out at the world and see what the challenges of the world of that generation, see what that challenges are. So for example, this is brought by the Baal Shem Tov. This is brought, for example, Noam Elimelech, Parshas Noach. If you look in the Chelkes Yeshua, in a couple of different places, where they write that each generation has its avodah. The Lashon by Rav Melech, the Heilige Zayda, is that his generation was the mitzvah of tzitzis, whatever that means. By the Chelkes Yeshua of Biala, my Rebbe Zichron Livracha's father, his generation was the Dor of Achdus. And until he writes, until Moshiach, but then there's nuances and shift. How do you actually achieve Achdus? So in our generation, we have our specific avodah as well. And subconsciously, people are recognizing it. They don't necessarily know how to deal with it. But people are speaking a different language today just because of the crises that are happening, and they've been forced to speak about it. But I do feel that people don't necessarily have the tools. So I say it in a way that we have the tools. Yes, that's what I believe. I believe that we do have the tools. And Baruch Hashem, if it wasn't for my teachers, we'd be in a different situation. But again, let me just ask you, do you feel, looking out at the world with what we've been working on, do you feel that we have something to offer? And do you feel this is something to offer? Do you feel the same? Yeah? And I think the Nakuda is, even if you're not, so to speak, part of the written text, is being around healthier people, being around more conscious people is something incredibly important. So stage one, das tachton chitzoni, just having the ability to recognize the space you are in, the people you are with, the time that is right now, is something incredibly important. I just want to add as well, Chazda Hashem, we had a little kenes here. We had Baruch Hashem a couple of tzaddikim, including Rav Meir Fassi and Rav Segal. Baruch Hashem, they came, and Rabbi Yeshua was zeicher to lay his eyes on these tzaddikim. And we were speaking about what's missing in our generation. And there's a number of things, so to speak, that are missing in our dor. But what's really sad is none of them are complex to fix, theoretically. Like really, there's a lot of people suffering, and the level of suffering can be brought down. And this is sad for anybody who's really in it, and anybody who is a wanter and a desirer for something bigger, for healing. And this is, we were sitting here, and it's not difficult. We've said this a number of times. It's not difficult, it's different. It's a re-education into how we were actually created, Tselem Elokim, which is found again where? Niglas HaTorah Nista. It's found in Niglas HaTorah. This is the simple makeup of what Chazal, what Tanakh was speaking to as the tzura of a human being. And that's something very, very important. And that's our investigation at the moment. And passed down from generation to generations. We've had these wisdom teachings. And we were saying yesterday, I believe we can share these wisdom teachings far better than ever before. So if you take a sefer from 100 years ago, we were speaking about a sefer called, with Rav Segal, Machne Yehuda. I've forgotten, Machne Yehuda, you know? No, Machne Yehuda from the Gilitziana, with the breathing, I've forgotten his name. Good morning. So, pardon? Yes, what Machne, Minchas Yehuda, No, Minchas, I think it's Minchas Yehuda. But the Nakuda is that in this Sefer, he speaks a language that's similar to a formulation of what we share. But Tachlis, we share it a lot better today. We share it, we have the language, we could share it a lot better. And that's something, again, like just Hagdamas, Shabbatoy Hagdamas, this is something to speak out. People are suffering, and I'm not going to say we can alleviate all suffering, but for sure we can decrease the suffering. And that's something as well very important. Life is not mathematical equations. Life is not mathematical equations. The Heilige grandson of the Kotzker Rebbe, when he speaks about how Moshe was Anaf v'Shafal, he was very humble. So the grandson, Nahar Shalom, he writes that Moshe had the tolerance to put up with his flaws and the flaws of others, realizing that's part of the divine plan as well. Part of the divine plan is to fall. That's how we are metaken, and how we are excavating, gathering, excavating, and elevating the Nitzaisis Kedusha. There's an art in falling. There's an art in tolerating your own flaws. There's an art in tolerating other people's flaws. And that's something really important. And Be'ezras Hashem, we're journeying more and more into this with detours. And I said that from the beginning, that this is a text which is a baseline. And in the Chaburas we speak a lot more and we go into it a lot more. But just to respect where we are with the material that we are learning here. So change and transition. Be'ezras Hashem, we're here, we're present. Okay. One point I just want to echo from a couple of weeks ago is that when we're speaking about the lower self, when we're speaking about the self and how we relate to the self, there's the nakuda of the fixed experience. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a world, and the principles of the world, so to speak, are fixed. So there was always a tzimtzum, there was always a kav, there was always the spheres, there was always the partsufim, there was always the oilamos, avsag maben. You always have the shvira. In the way we know our story and our narrative, you have these fixed principles. And these fixed principles fall into then this reality where you have what we labeled here the fact or fixed aspect of the experience. So just to bring into focus again as we go forward, I'm always relating to the fact, I'm always relating to the fact I experience emotions, and I'm always relating to the fact I physically sense. That is what we call a metzius. Now remember, we have the lingering question of who I am. We'll get that, because really we can only start to know who we are. We could start to know what anything is through two ways. Either jumping into what it is, but the problem is, logically and sequentially, and again, challenge me, because this is not about taking what I'm saying for granted. This is about your experience. And I said, I'll say it again and again and again and again. Like, don't take it for granted. This is not like, I'm not interested in people who are parrots. It's not about parroting. It's about recognizing that we are in a space in time now, and we need to make shifts. We need to make shifts. So think about this, please. If you're interested. If you're not interested, I love you still the same. You don't have to have anything to do with what we're doing. It's all good. Like, there's no strings attached. Like kapshutai. There's no wrong. Like, really. So there's the fact and the fixed aspect of an experience. So there's a kli. Page 14. Yeah. So so we all think, we all feel, we all physically sense, and we want to recognize I'm not that. We want to pull away what I am not. In the process of pulling away what I am not, I just want to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I davened before that he can help me. I wasn't in the space I'm in now, and he helped me. So Shkayach HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'll believe in you today. I'll keep you. You're good stuff. So this nakuda of fact is something very, very important. But then we've got the content, or the what's that word say? Variable. The content or the variable aspect of the experience. So that's the aura, so to speak, of the experience. The aura of the experience is what I am thinking, what I am feeling, and what I'm physically sensing. So there's two dimensions here which are really important to understand. The fact I think, feel, and sense, and then the content of my thinking, feeling, and physical sensation. Tikkun Hamidais, the beauty, the mechanism of Tikkun Hamidais, whether it's coming from the world of Musa or the world of the Baal Shem Tov, it's working with this reality. It's working with this reality. So Tikkun Hamidos is the upgrading of the content. I can't change the fact, it's the upgrading of the content. So I can change and upgrade my thinking. I can change and upgrade my emotionality, and I can upgrade my physical sensations. I can do that. And Kipshutai, how do I change my physical sensations? Well, try exercising, try sweating, build your muscles, build resilience within your body. Weights, heavy weights, or cardiovascular, yoga, whatever it may be, that changes your physical sensations. You are using your guf and training your guf, but that training of your guf will impact your physical sensations. Try cold plunge. Try hot. Sit in a hot tub. Try whatever it may be. But you put your body through difficulty, you will learn about your body. You've as well got, which we haven't necessarily mentioned this nakuda yet, you've got mind over matter, and you've got matter over mind. So mind over matter everyone speaks about, but you've got matter over mind. So you've got mind over your guf, but you've got your guf over your mind. And that's how we upgrade and change our physical sensations. We call that in our language of Kabbalah, and this is the second principle that we need to metakin in our generation, Yesod. Yesod. What's Netzach? Netzach is our emotions. So we can, through different exercises, Hislavus, getting excited, choose to getting excited over something, emotionalizing what we do, we could change and upgrade our emotionality. We can choose to be more joyous. It takes effort. It's not difficult, it is different. It takes effort. That's the wage, that's the currency. The currency is effort. The currency is effort, turning up. Less than the wisdom teachings itself, which on a certain respect is secondary if you don't turn up. Effort. You can have the availability to upgrade and change your emotionality. And with your thinking the same. You can upgrade and change your thinking. So Tikkun Hamidos, when we're speaking about Musa and Tikkun Hamidos, we've got this glorious, majestic, sophisticated approach, and simple once we understand it, to change. And it's not difficult. It's implementing small rituals, habits and practices every single day in our life to add up to what we want to add up to. And what is that? So we hopefully, maybe if we're gifted, we'll speak about this. Right now we are not speaking about Makairos, but the Indian of Ruach HaKodesh, the Indian of Nevuah. And again, not self-centered, just remember Baruch in Tanakh, in Yirmiyahu. We spoke about that I think once, 7,000 years ago. The Nakuda of, he wanted his spiritual experience, and Hashem said, while my buildings are burning, you want your Talmud wants his spiritual experience. No, it's about giving. It's about being a Noisen. Just as Hashem is a Noisen, we want to be a Noisen. That's not taking away from our own connected experience to the divine, which is part of service as well. So being a being of service is an akuda of, for myself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I need that fuel of connection. I need that fuel of deep, long-term intimacy with you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And through that, through the Ruach HaKodesh and through the Nevuah, it will give me insight in how to be of service. But also it feels good, which is a fuel, Eineg. And that's part of living well. Part of living well is Eineg. So we're now adding this dimension with what we are speaking about in regards to the reality of the fixed aspect of our experience and the transient to do with time, the transient, the aspect that we can change and upgrade. It takes effort. I'm not saying it's easy. It takes effort. You want an easy ride? Don't come here. It's not an easy ride. I personally, that's not how I saw change. So this Nakuda is very, very important. Fixed and variable. Last week we spoke about how I can start observing. And what we said last week, again, is this awareness of what I call a fact. I call it an experiential fact. Why? Because it's not just me that experiences that. My teachers told me this. I'm like a critical so-and-so. I'm like, yeah, right, okay, very nice, heard it all before. But then actually when you do it, it's like, oh my gosh, Zaidi, Rabbi Singer, you're not stupid. Like, wow, you had something good to say, wow. Or Rabbi Shapira, wow. And Tachlis is, as you go through your own process, you realize it for yourself. No strings attached, no entanglement, it's your experience. But that's the beauty of this. The beauty of this is it's not that you don't care. You can give space. You have more patience. Like Moshe Rabbeinu is a Baalei Daat. Moshe Rabbeinu was called Das. So he gave a lot of patience. There were certain things he didn't tolerate for the nation because of the kavod of the nation and the kavod of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But when it came to him, not because he didn't have self-esteem. He had self-esteem. He just understood the bigger picture. There's this horizontal and vertical reality. The horizontal reality is that we are in our generation. We are in our generation. And we've got our generational needs, and everything will work out. The generation we are in, our children, our grandchildren, maybe our great-grandchildren, they're going to meet year 6000. So, see what happens. But there's this vertical hishtalshelus as well, where we are coming from somewhere. So you hear part of this horizontal and part of this vertical, the compounded pressure, the multi-generational compounded pressure from the horizontal, which is far more than ever, and the vertical. No wonder we're popping a little bit. No wonder Chazal tell us in Gemara Sanhedrin that they would never want to live in our generation. But the point is, we have all the tools to deal with it. The more conscious we become and the more we heal, the natural consequence is mechanistic. It's mechanistic. What's the mechanistic aspect of it? We even see it in the secular world. Anybody who's done anything to do with therapy, anybody who's done anything to do with personal growth, typically, if they're doing it right, what are the outcomes? They feel different. Usually that different at first could be icky, but eventually when they learn to hold it, they become aware of it, they meet it, it brings up all of this junk, they meet it, they hold it, they could be more compassionate, and etc., etc. The outcome typically is you live better. You can meet those things that were more difficult with grace. And if you still feel icky, the point is that you can hold that ickiness with grace. And if a person really does a proper cleansing, a proper healing, a proper fixing, you live better. That's a natural consequence. So it's not so far-fetched. You remember we spoke about in education how you have to create the tagging. So for example, with Mar Nevuchim, it wasn't just about Aristotle. He was using Aristotle to get out of Aristotle. People didn't understand that, and they still don't understand that. So that's why, for a lot of people, it seems illogical that Rav Avraham Abulafia took the Rambam as a model. But to somebody who's a Mavin, no, it's Pasha Pshat. Of course he did. It's like, of course. To break free, and typically when a person does that work and they break free, they live better. Nachon? They live better. I don't think that's so far-fetched to think about. Remember, there's Hashem in the world and Hashgacha Pratis, but that's the paradox of who and what we are. We are the nation of subtlety, and we are the nation of paradox. And the point is, we've been led out of that. Again, this is what it means to be led out of what it is to be a normal, healthy human being. We've been led out of the reality that, if you could say it like this, one of my kids say it like this, it's not fair to be part of the Jewish nation. It isn't. It isn't. It isn't. We're smashed left, right, and center. Our history is not a glorious one. One day we hope it will. I believe it. It's not fair. Because we are an anomaly, we are a paradox, everything is subtle. By Bnei Israel, we are the nation of subtlety. And Avraham Avinu chose that, and Avraham Avinu's in our level, our body on a cellular level, a DNA level. Someone has to do the job. So this is an akuda again of the Rambam of Bechira or no Bechira. You have to choose the fact there's no Bechira. And what's choosing the fact there's no Bechira? It seems illogical. Well, actually, to a certain point, it's very logical. The more that you can let go and not control, and you connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as it says in Pirkei Avos, I make my will HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will, or however it's perfectly labeled there, there's a certain magic that happens, that everything just flows. Everything just flows. I've seen it with my teachers far more than what I've experienced, but the fact is, I think all of us, especially from the world we live in today, we do see that the more I control, it's like, you've ever experienced that? And then the more you can sensibly let go, not that you become a shmata. We're not saying you become a shmata and you still do your hishtadlus, but there's a certain shift in the way you approach things. I approach things 1,000% engaged. I approach things 1,000% with my hishtadlus. This is going to work out. And there's this, I'm with Hashem. I'm with Hashem, and Hashem is the boss. And it's a paradox. It's the same way when you start learning about Hashgacha Pratis. I did an Averis, I have to do tshuva. 1 minute though. If everything's Hashgacha Pratis, Hashem made me do the Averis. So it's not fair. I have to get punished. It's not fair. Well, correct, it's not fair. And the way we're meant to look at it is as following, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu set this world up in such a way that I have to learn to take full responsibility. And Hashem made me do it, yes. If you're in your nefesh, if you're in your thinking, feelings, and physical sensations, wow, it hurts. It hurts. But the more you become a baldas, the more you say, Kadosh Baruch Hu, I'm with you 1,000%. And it's odd. It's odd. So am I chayiv for the averis I do? Yeah, of course I am. Do I have to take full responsibility? Of course I do. B'hashgacha pratis, Hashem made me do it. Yeah, it's not a paradox. It's not a paradox when you're in a place of das. It's like, yeah, it doesn't fit, it's not fair. All of that's nefesh talk. All of that's the narrative that we've created because we're not in flow. We're not in a state of das. And as we go further in this, there's a reorientation in the way we perceive. And I'm asking you, again, don't take what I am saying for granted. Don't believe me. Think about it for yourself. And instead of thinking about it for yourself, contemplate these teachings and let's see what happens. Let's do an experiment, a social experiment. Let's see what happens over let's see what happens over the next number of months, and just notice if you choose to turn up and you listen and you're around it, just notice, the more I become a baldas, the less I'm bothered by it. It is what it is. You end up saying that a lot. It is what it is. That's called emes. Shalom is the process to get to emes. Shalom is the process. It's like shalom is the vacuum cleaner that you're taking all the parts and working on integrating. Emes is recognizing really comfortably it is what it is. When you're not b'shalom, you can't say it is what it is. When you are b'shalom, you can say it is what it is. It always is what it's going to be. Our interpretation leads to the cultivation of holding the fact it is what it is. And life is an anomaly, life is a paradox, and our wanting, again, to gracefully hold that paradox and to recognize everything is subtle. By the tzaddikim, the Kotzker Rebbe writes, in the Kotzker Rebbe writes with Aaron HaKohen, that Aaron HaKohen, he didn't change anything left or right, he didn't change anything at all. I think it was the Kotzker Rebbe who says this, that he says that two things can happen. A person can get bored with something. So at first they're excited when they first start something, and then as they go on they become bored. So number one, he didn't change left or right. He remained excited the whole time. The other nukuda is that he turned up, and it was what he didn't turn left or right. What's that? The center, das. He was in a state of das, and he met each moment. He met each lighting of the menorah with the reality of emes. This is what it is. So think about this for a moment. The purest form of emes experienced is as following: silent and stillness, because emes is related to das. Stillness. The purest form of emes is. It is what it is. I meet it, it's still and it's quiet. It's still and silent. That's emes, truth. The way we code it in experience. Now we've been told to talk. We've been told to engage in the world of speech. As Chazal tell us, if we could daven all day, it would be amazing. If we could... the Ramchal writes that really the greatest expression of praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is silence. But we've been told to daven, we've been told to engage in the physical world. So I'm pushing a little bit. I'm pushing because, we don't have time. Globally, not just in the next whatever long. We can read the words on the pages, but we want to push. I want to be very methodical. I want to finish this paragraph and then we will take questions. So we finished this part now and we're going to read from the text. Any questions on what we've said so far, or should we just go weiter? Anything that you want to? Yes, sir.
Can you explain how the greatest praise of Hashem is silence?
The nakuda is anything that we say, it's never ever going to be good enough. So the greatest praise, being silent, is the greatest praise, is I can just be silent. Nothing ever, and this is, the Chazal battle with this in a number of places. In brachos, how can I say this? I'm limiting, and you can't add words. So Anshe Knesset Agadola in the beginning of the Amidah says, you can't add words, because the moment you add words, you're going to be limiting. So Tachlis, anything I say is limiting. The fact that I speak takes away from the metzius of the reality. That's why the Torah was given in silence, in darkness and silence. Okay?
What do you mean
Yes.
the Torah was given in silence?
It says in Chumash. There was noise, and then everything went quiet. That the Torah was given in that quiet, in that darkness, for this particular reason, which we're saying words, but whatever it means, I don't know. Yes.
Where is Moshe Rabbeinu called Das?
In several, I could send you the sources afterwards, but he's called Das in the Zohar. He's called Das in the Medrash. There's a number of places where Moshe Rabbeinu was called Das.
Why is he called Das when he is Netzach?
It's both. Again, we're freeze framing a process that's layered and layered and layered and layered. So one dimension, you have Hod and Netzach, which is Aaron, and you have Aaron and you have Moshe. And that dimension of Moshe is to do with the future. He's the one that sees the future. Aaron HaKohen is present in the moment. So you've got the gratitude and the victory, you've got the gratitude and the hope, but then from another dimension, we're told that Moshe Rabbeinu is Das. He is the Das of Am Yisrael. And we have this repetitive theme. This is found in either Aliyas and Yeridus HaDoros or B'Kitzur Derech HaAvodah, where we go through and we break down. I think it's Aliyas and Yeridus HaDoros. B'Kitzur Derech Hashem. So I believe there's a keta there that speaks about how HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you look in Chayei Olam Haba of Rav Avram Abulafia, he writes there that Hashem is Das. So there's always this relationship, Neshama, Ruach, Nefesh, Neshama, Ruach, Nefesh. And where is Das? It's the top of Ruach. So Hashem is the Das, Moshe Rabbeinu is the Das, the Tzaddikim are the Das. So everything, Am Yisrael, everything is relative, Erechin, everything is relative to something else. So we are the Das, Am Yisrael should be the Das for the Ummah Ha'olam. That's written out in over a couple of pages. I think it's in Aliyas and Yeridus HaDoros. Remind me, I'll find it.
No, but that's I understand it now when you say that everything is relative. Am Yisrael is the Das relative to the world.
Yes.
Moshe Rabbeinu is the Das
Relative,
relative to
Erechin, language of the Arizal.
Hashem is
Yes.
the-
Yeah, and that's the complexity. That's what we're saying. We're freeze framing a moving process. We get stuck. Oh, 1 minute, it wasn't this. We get stuck in black and white thinking. This is an akudah of subtlety. Am Yisrael, we are the nation of subtlety. We really are. And it's scary because what happens is you really, really have to let go. Subtlety, if you think about it, is quietness. It's not obvious. It's still. It's quiet. It's pulling back from the megale, from the revealed. So the more we become a chacham, you see a wise person. If you ever see tzaddikim, I remember with my grandfather, who was a very, very wise person. He just used to sit there quietly, doing his little thing, observing. And then when you had something to ask him, whoa. So subtlety is subtlety, stillness. And that's what we want to achieve. Unfortunately, it's a lost art, or it's a losing art. Why? Because we're in a state of fight and flight. We're in a trauma state. Trauma state is we want to hold on. We want to control. I need to prove my position. I'm going to lose out. And it's painful for us. We want always to feel safe, secure, and certain in the world of the nefesh. Okay, ready to go weiter? So we're now at the last week we finished. I just want to check this, sorry. How can I start observing? So I think we've covered now just a deeper way of hopefully quite rationally appreciating what we've said. I believe so. We've added a couple of dimensions. So everything here we want to add dimensions. So now we are at the chapter, we can ignore or explore our experience. Yes, this is correct? Yeah, okay. What I find interesting is that even when I'm not asking the question, I have awareness of what's going on inside. For example, if a thought that is unhelpful or unhealthy comes into my awareness, I can choose to ignore or explore that thought. Gewaltig. Ruach HaKodesh. So what we're saying here, and this is again really important, that at first, what I want to do is have at least a crutch. What is that crutch? That crutch is a targil. We're calling this a targil. A targil is an exercise. A targil is an exercise. So I want to be able to use the tools that I have in this world. I do not want to make these tools an Avodah Zarah. So it's like, I didn't do my Habbatah, so I'm going to break. I didn't have my coffee, or I didn't have this, or I didn't, whatever it may be. Now everything is falling apart. Yiddishkeit is radical responsibility. Judaism is radical responsibility. Living a frum Jewish life, I don't like the term frum, a Shema Torah mitzvah's life, believing in HaKadosh Baruch Hu is radical responsibility. Very, very important to understand. So there's this nakuda of internal representation. I don't need anything from the outside. Everything is in me. All my tikkunim is available. I'm always in the right space. I'm always with the right people at the right time. Hashgacha pratis is recognizing there's no other way. And Hashgacha pratis is the realization that everything is always perfect, even in the most seemingly imperfect situations. So that's what it is. That's the quality, that's the metric of becoming more a baldas. And at first, we for sure use all the crutches we can get, 100%. But it's very important to recognize that we want to go beyond that. We want to go inside. So, lamashal, we have this exercise of Habbatah, lahabit. Habbatah, which I don't remember if we went into the history of it, maybe a little bit, no. I'm not going to go into the full history of it now. We will at another time, because the moment we start going into exercises, targilim, one has to be cautious, because we could definitely turn it into something it shouldn't be, not because of anything holy or not holy, we just misuse, unfortunately. The nakuda of Habbatah is an exercise that's from, the way I received it was from a tzaddik called Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Shapira, who was a student of the Piasetzner Rebbe. Where he received it from was in his family line. There was a particular tzaddik he learnt by who received the Masoros of the Nestorim, number one from his father, who died when the Piasetzner was about 3 years old. And he received these traditions. I believe, I can't say for sure, I believe that that's where he received the Habbatah from. The Habbatah is as well from another line of the Nestorim of Reb Yaakov Moshe Safrin, who's called the Navi. He was the Munkacher's father-in-law. So this exercise is an exercise where you simply, on whatever level, ask yourself, what am I physically sensing right now? And simply, I say simply because it's not simple, but non-judgmentally observe. You're not changing anything. At first, you're just becoming aware. Mani margish. And then you can ask, what am I feeling in my emotions? V'sfilsti, what am I feeling? And then what am I thinking? And just ask yourself what I am thinking. And I'll say now, and again we'll go into this more, but thoughts show themselves as imagery and sound. So a hirhur, which is a fleeting thought, and for example, again, the sophistication of Yiddishkeit. What's the difference between when Torah calls what seemingly seems like a thought, a machshava, but then we have another language of a hirhur. What's a hirhur? Hirhur tshuva. It's found in Shas. Hirhur avera. Found in Chazal. Well, what's the difference between a hirhur and a machshava? And again, hopefully we'll go into that. You'll come to realize that a hirhur is as it sounds. Hirhur, maharher. It's a thought that just comes up. It's a thought that's not conscious. Whereas machshava is a focused thought, or a focused stream of thinking. So we really do. It's like, it's marvelous. It really is marvelous. The way we start to understand how we work, it's really Torah speaking on so many levels. Torah speaking on so many levels. And this is our inheritance. So this nakuda of recognizing that after practicing consciously Habbatah, I'll sit there for 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 3 times a day. And just to stop and just ask. So I would ask the question and observe for half a minute. Ask the question again and observe for half a minute. Now this is the mechanism. Asking the question is what we call seichel. Seichel asks questions. Das observes. So I accent my seichel by asking a question, ma ani choshev. Then I non-judgmentally observe. And if there is a clean observation, like I'm looking out at something, for that half a minute, fantastic. So that's called hachna and havdalah. I pull back and I'm observing. Hachna and havdalah is found in Keser Shem Tov Kaf Chet Bet. I can pull back and I can observe. There's another nakuda to havdalah which is distinguishing. So you've got the vertical and horizontal. Vertical of what we call havdalah is I could separate and pull back from it. The horizontal is I can then distinguish, which is another layer. Hachna and havdalah. Between the different thoughts. Between the different feelings. So hachna, pulling back, is das, and then pulling out of the experience. So I now observe the experience. This is what we said. If I can observe it, I'm not it. That's what we said before, if you remember. So I pull back, I can observe, I'm separate now. Then there's another birur, there's another investigation that we're not going into now, which is distinguishing, but put that to the side right now. So what we're saying, I can pull back and observe my physical sensations. I can pull back and observe and separate from my thoughts. I can pull back and observe my emotions. And we want to try to create a relationship, I dare say mastery, over this. And this is how you start to get into a state of das. So this exercise of Habbatah is a crutch. It's a crutch. But the nakuda of what we're saying here, once you start actually doing it, and again, we are freeze framing a process for the sake of education, because really we don't potentially always label, I'm thinking a thought, feeling, and physical sensation. We say, I'm relating to my nefesh. I'm relating now to my nefesh habahami, and my nefesh habahami is wanting this. Am I going to engage with it this way or that way? But for the sake of education, and for the sake of, having the ability to communicate conscious competency, we're using this language. Thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations. So now what starts to happen, yes?
I'm sorry, I just want to clarify. What I'm hearing from the Rav, that's coming from understanding, is that...
Very good that we're keeping to the formula of we'll leave questions till this part, but go on, carry on. Rules are there to make break. No, I should have said wait, but anyway, go now, let's go.
I really want to just make sure I understand what Rav said.
Baruch Hashem. It's amusing, it's not serious, amusing.
Okay. We use this Habbatah exercise, Tarkil, as a crutch. We get the seichel to ask the questions, to get ourselves to start observing, to practice entering the state of das. And the eventual,
Go on, carry on. What's the last part of your sentence?
The goal is to become someone who's capable of observing without having to
Exactly.
stop and ask
Exactly. And more than that, it becomes tiv'i. My nefesh, the part of me that can create sometimes the greatest torture, only wants to help me. My nefesh starts to help me. So again, what I find interesting is that even when I'm not asking the questions, I have an awareness of what's going on inside. Now, that awareness probably subconsciously is arising because maybe a thought came up. This is called tikkun amidos. So again, there is the fact I think and the content of my thought. There is the fact I feel and the content of my feeling. There is the fact I physically sense and the content of my physical sensation. My ego self, I don't like to use these terms, I'm just trying to use it as a way of communicating. The ego self wants to help me. The ego self wants to do everything. So we have a saying that comes from the Pilsner Rav, and the Baalei Rebbe brings this in one of his forum. We want to metaken the nefesh, so eventually the nefesh will metaken us. And that's the switch from what we call das to keser. That's the switch that, so to speak, my cognitive awareness can switch off and I can trust my instinct. I think I mentioned this, no, I don't think I mentioned this here. I mentioned it somewhere else in a shir a couple of days ago. I had a conversation with somebody and he's dating. And he's a very, very mature young man. And we could only have this conversation if he was mature. If he wasn't mature, you couldn't have this conversation. So he's dating, and he dated a girl once. And he really didn't want to date her again. And he had this gut feeling. He says, I've got this gut feeling, should I trust it? And I said, you're asking an amazing question. So what are your thoughts? Typically, you know how I work. The derech by my teachers was, what do you think? You have all the answers. I'm only here to trigger all the wisdom you have inside. You don't need me. You don't need me that much. It's like, here, you've got it. Let's work it out together. We need to support each other, but that's it. That's it. On a certain respect, obviously, there is a lot more. So this nakuda is a nakuda where, you remember the halachas we were learning? No? So this nakuda is a nakuda where he said, I've been told to trust my instincts, which is very good. Good for you. He's been in therapy. He's been told to trust his instincts. So I pointed something out to him and I left it for him to think about. I have to see what he did. I said to him, 100%. But if your instincts aren't metukan, how can you know to trust them or not? That was it. 100% we should be aware. It's fantastic. You have become self-aware in what you're feeling inside. So that's called Hachna and Havdalah. That is the awareness, the vertical pulling away. Now you are making a judgment call. What's the judgment call? I shouldn't go out with her. Why? Because my gut's telling me not to go out with her. No. You've become aware of what you're experiencing inside, but now horizontally you need to do a birur. Can I trust that part of me? You hear this subtlety?
The gut's a crutch in some way?
No, the gut is not necessarily, his gut feeling may not be correct. So what are people told? Trust your gut. For sure you can trust your gut when it's been more metukan. For sure. So we want to metaken our nefesh, so our nefesh will metaken us. And again, Chabad Chagat Nehim. It's that availability to be aware of what I'm experiencing, and then, can I trust it? So in this instant, I probably would have suggested that you should say to your nefesh, we're going to go out with her because right now you're not metukan, but I want to hold you and we'll get a coffee or something afterwards, if it's so terribly painful. We'll have a reward. But eventually, when we do the work, more and more in life, I could start to trust. I can metaken the nefesh, so the nefesh will metaken me.
How do you assess when it's metaken?
So that's a different conversation. But first, the mechanism. You're asking, how can I assess if it's metukan or not? That's a different question. But first, the mechanism. Awareness, and to know that I can observe, and eventually I learn to investigate. That's called hamtaka. That's called hamtaka. No. Put it back, please. Okay. I can choose to say hi to whatever's coming up. I can say hi to it. I can say, I know you're there. I could move on to the next thing that I'm doing. I can explore what is going on within my thinking. So, this is das and seichel, working with nefesh. I now can become aware, a thought, a feeling, a physical sensation has arose. And stage one is awareness. And stage two is I could start to build a relationship. I could say hi to it. Hi, how you doing? I can say hi and I can let it go. If it's persisting, I can say, hi, I know you're there. I know you're there, it's okay, and move on to the next thing. So what that could look like is that I'm trying to focus on something. So where this is brought up in the Sfarim HaKadoshim, and for example in Sifrei Chabad by the Baalei Daat, is in Tefillah. I'm davening and a foreign thought arises. Now you have to remember, Chazal bring, and this is found in Tshuva Mi'ava, Shalos Tshuvas, Chelek Aleph, Shut 16 I think, where we speak about the whole nature of how Chazal understand that we are always being impacted by Hirhurim. So there's a Maisa by the Baal Shem Tov. Someone came to the Baal Shem Tov and says there's a certain mystic in town, and he says he can get somebody completely and utterly to stop their fleeting thinking. To which the Baal Shem Tov says sheker. Part of our experience here is nefesh thinking. You can't detach with part of your experience. You can reach a state of das, number one, where you could experience silence and quietness. We can do that. But the point is that we want to attach to our nefesh. We want hamtaka. Hachna, havdala, hamtaka. We want hamtaka, but in a healthy way. And the Baal Shem Tov says, this person, it's not true. Baal Shem Tov is quoting Chazal. We have two Masechtas that speak about this. Not for now. Again, I don't want to get bogged down into sources. But the Nakuda is what? The Nakuda is, I can acknowledge what comes up. And as I do Tikkun Amidos, the quality of the content will always improve. The quality of the content will always improve. As I said, I don't want to go into Makoros, but my nefesh telling me to tell you, you could look at Kuzari 5.3 if you want. But I'm not going into Makoros. So, I can choose to say hi to it. I can say, I know you're there, and I could move on with the next things that I am doing. Or I can explore what's going on within my thinking. So this is a reality check in how we work. What does this mean in regards to experience? I've not really taken note until my mentors shared this with me, that I can be aware of my thinking, and that my thinking is always leading me, whether consciously or subconsciously, in what I am doing and how I'm relating to the reactions, or how I'm relating and reacting to experiences. This is found in Gemara Sanhedrin, that the leader is called a medaber. Our thoughts are leading us. That's found in another kuntras, but I'm going to be quiet now. Okay, I'm sorry, Nefesh. Just excited. Number 3, that I can either listen to my thinking and follow the thinking through, letting my thinking lead me. It's the same with feelings and physical sensations. Or if I can catch myself and remember the fact that I can be aware of my thinking, I can consciously choose a different stream of thought to follow, potentially. Again, Hashem's in the world, Hashgacha Pratis. If an unhealthy thought comes up, we can acknowledge it. We can acknowledge its presence with a hello, as strange as that may sound. We can consciously choose to put our focus elsewhere. The knowledge that we are not obligated to dissect, justify, validate, interpret each and every thought presents itself within us is a game changer in terms of bettering our normative living. Okay, you have to read it for yourself. Sorry for the breakdown, but Baruch Hashem, my reader is here. Baruch Hashem. Okay, so again, I'm trying to prep that experientially when we read these paragraphs, it's compounding from last week, adding something new. But is this resonating? Is this making sense? Yeah, we're not missing steps. Okay, because I made a claim at the beginning that I think it's really important if we can create a sequential, logical equation, even though ultimately there's Hashem in the world and it's not like that. But the fact is, if we can, for the terms of education, then as we speak then about very, very deep experiences that may seem very far off to us, actually you'll just fall into it naturally. That's the one thing. You'll just fall into it, easy peasy. There's something over there that's going to help us tremendously, and that over there is very far. But if we do this right, step by step, and it takes time, it takes effort. Not everyone wants to do this work, just to let you know. Not everyone, it's too much for people. They want a pill. They want a pill, and they're not prepared to do the work. And there's at times nothing wrong with taking that pill, doing that holotropic breathing, doing that crutch of an exercise. Nothing wrong with it. If the conversation, the commitment to long-term, deep, intimate relationship is there, the responsibility, the openness is there, then it's perfectly fitting and in context. If it's not, it's dangerous. Not everyone wants to do this, and I get it. It's effort. This is like it's effort. I respect that.
When you say this, you're saying what specifically do you mean, as opposed to like the actual exercises?
Od Pam?
When you say
Again, just taking into consideration, we won't take questions. I'm just finding it amusing. Don't worry. It's like I wanted to do something. This is what we're speaking about. We said we'll do something, and we're not doing it, but it's okay. I'm okay. It's like. Lavriut, yes. Bechavod, say it loudly, please. I didn't hear what you said.
When you say this,
Doing this work of getting to know ourselves, retethering to our truer essence.
meaning the consistent self-check-ins, in other words?
It's not just the self-check-ins. I'm talking about the gestalt. The whole process of living a life. The whole process of living a life is automatic. But who says what the quality of goodness, what the quality of joy, what the quality of energy, excitement, intimacy, eineg, what's that quality? That doesn't come by itself. More than that, there's actually a mechanism that involves all of that. The Borei Olam created a beautiful world for us to live a beautiful life. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to us, I'm giving to you on a silver plate, or a golden plate, whatever the Lashon is. I'm giving it to you. Medrash Rabbah, if you remember, Adam is shown around the garden by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Hashem says, I've made you a spectacular world. I've given you everything on a golden plate. And he says, a couple of words, don't mess it up. Because if you are going to mess it up, it's going to take a lot to fix it. Well, God bless us. We've messed it up. We've made a mess. And there's always hope. And that mess is kadosh. That mess is part of our avodah. We shouldn't turn around and say, oh, no hope. No. It's opportunity. Everything is opportunity. It's a shift. It's a shift. And the more that we're functioning from where we should be functioning in life, it's like, gewaldig. Okay, Hashem, you told us this. I know where I want to be, and if I'm not tethered properly, if I'm not retethered to Naran, there's no conversation. But if, b'siyata d'shmaya, something happens that I could start the process, okay, I start to grow. But what starts to happen is I become more patient. I start to realize Hashem's big, everything is an opportunity. Everything is an opportunity for growth. Things become a lot more, and I engage in my hishtadlus even stronger. It's not that, and I become a shmat and let everything go. No, I work even harder on my avodas Hashem. I'm even more critical and intense on myself. But you know how my nefesh reacts? Yeah, let's go, yeah! I become the coach. Das becomes the coach of the nefesh, and we mamish pummel away at the nefesh. And the nefesh is so excited. Why? Because we've done the work to allow the nefesh to feel safe. And when the nefesh feels safe, and little bit by bit, there's many parts within our nefesh, many parts. And as that communication starts to occur, so this part I can start to be more harsh with. This part I have to be more delicate with. And it becomes natural, it's a natural process. But then the real growth occurs in the intensity.
In the what?
Intensity. I didn't even say that like silly Americans say intensity. Intensity. I don't even know how you silly Americans say intensity. Say intensity. Intensity.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
The real excitement and growth occurs in the grind. When we're in the grind and we're really bang, bang, pummeling away, that's where we feel most alive. But most people are afraid to go there because they don't feel safe. So part of Avodas HaKodesh is to feel safe. When we feel safe, what do you think bitachon is? This is what bitachon is, ABCDs of bitachon. I can feel safe that I can work. We were created, as it says in Eov, to work. We were created to labor. And that's where actually we find the greatest joy. It's not necessarily so fun when it begins, but for sure when it finishes, it's like, okay. And that seems to be a pretty, again, everything I'm sharing, unless stated otherwise, is a pretty universal law. That was Rabbi Singer's shita. It's universal law. And so many of us don't feel that way. And it's okay we don't feel that way. There's no blame. I mean, there can be blame, but there's no blame. There's no blame. What there is an opportunity to re-meet ourselves. And it's gentle and intense. It's kind and harsh. It's compassionate and impatient. It's all good. It's all good. And there's this balancing act. Again, subtlety. This nakuda of subtlety. Am Yisrael is a subtle nation. It's a subtle nation. We have a lot of tolerance. We have a lot. We can tolerate so much, because that's not where our battle is. We can tolerate other religions taking everything off us and saying they're the church. It's okay, you want to do that, labriyut. Let's leave us alone, please. We'll help you, but leave us alone. Don't come and tell us. I was listening to a priest last year. I was listening to a priest. He's so to speak, if I can say it in these ish emes. He's really a person who's growing. And I said to him afterwards, he's darshaning, and he says, the Jews don't understand. It's so funny. I said to him, I find it interesting. Everything, I'm going to say this like little mishpat to you, and everything afterwards, I'm letting it go. I do find it interesting that you have the audacity to say that we don't understand when you don't read Hebrew. You don't understand the Tanakh in its original language, and most Christians don't. Most priests don't. So before you even start, there's no conversation. On top of that, you make a claim, there's no proof in the written law for having an oral law. Look at Parashat Yitro, it says Torot. Again, you won't know that because you've never actually bothered to learn the Tanakh in its original language. It says Torot, two Torot. And plus, you're telling the one that wrote the manual, you're telling the one that received the manual how the manual works. It's like basically saying a guy has a problem with his car and won't take his car to the garage, and he looks up on YouTube and then he messes everything up because the YouTube wasn't 100% correct. And then I said, now let that go and carry on with our relationship. But the nakuda is that there's such depth here. And we really want to give it the proper respect and retether. And wherever we are, it's nobody's fault, so to speak. Everyone's trying to seek. And we are a nation of tolerance. Why can we put up with them? Why? Why can we put up? Why shouldn't we start our own? We didn't have the Jewish Crusades, and we didn't have rampages of killing, because that's not. We don't really care. Like, the honest truth is, we don't really care. Their caring is very immature. And even what they say they truly care about is truly immature. What do we care about? Caring, sharing, supporting, and encouraging with good firm boundaries. That's it, the Abrahamic vision. And the maturity level of where we get that from is far different than anyone else. And they won't understand. Anybody who has to do anything with a sword before you have even begun is a disgrace to God. And at times, we've had to do something with a sword, and God didn't like it. We didn't like it, but we did it because we were told to do it. And when that finished, hasn't happened since, but it's there because it's a reminder of mechanically how things work. And when that mechanism is dysfunctional, so it's not there. Slavery, people speak about slavery. All of these things are secondary. Yes, there were slaves. And Tachlis is that we can have a slave. Now, I'll tell you that when people look at slavery or the prison system, and you actually look at the Torah, Judaism and genocide, the Chumash speaks about genocide. But one minute. If the Torah speaks about genocide, why is it that about 5 psukim later on, those same people that were meant to experience genocide are driving us mad again? They were ghosts? No, maybe it's a poetic license, as Chazal tell us. So with the Torah Shebaal Peh, we're lost. We lost with the Torah Shebaal Peh. And what happens when you don't have the Torah Shebaal Peh? You have a group of people who basically come and say funny, odd things. People buy into it because whatever's louder is catchy. Whatever's louder is catchy. And whatever seems good, again, it's not subtle. None of it's subtle. We're the nation of subtlety. It's not that we don't care, it's stupid. It's not that. It's like, no, we've got more important work to do. And it's far more subtle. And we will do it because it's in our DNA. Again, there's an unbroken chain from becoming a nation at Har Sinai until today, unbroken chain. And that's in our DNA. We can't run away from it, however it manifests. And even in these words, I'm saying it's pregnant with meaning, and I'm not going into the conversation now. But it manifests in many, many different ways. And the reason being is because we can tolerate. Why can we tolerate? Because we're Baalei Daat. We're not in our nefesh. We shouldn't be in our nefesh. So when our own flaws come up, we are in communication with them. And as we start that communication, we for sure can have these crutches to help underpin, hopefully create some sort of stability in our life. And if a person, I've got a guy 19 years ago, he started antidepressants. And he's still on antidepressants today. And I spoke to him last week, and he, it was very interesting. He said, for the first 4 or 5 years, when am I going to get off this? When am I going to get off this? When am I going to get off this? Because for him, he felt being on antidepressants after learning all of these Torahs is a suboptimal way of life. And he knows my response. But he called me up and we were talking, he spoke, he has a son-in-law, and his son-in-law is really having a hard time. And Tachlis is, they have to figure out, it could be they need medical intervention. And he was like, no. He happens to be very close. Baruch Hashem, he has a fantastic relationship with his wife and very, very close to his in-laws. So they just got married last year. So it's a bit difficult, but things are not going well. But they're very close. And he spoke to his father-in-law and he says, you know that I'm on antidepressants. But the fact is that there's Hashem in the world and you are part of a chain spanning thousands of years. And you don't even know where your anxiety, your crippling anxiety is coming from. You don't know where it's coming from. If you're my child, I'll say it's coming from your mother's side of the family, he said to her. He said to him. But the point is, you don't know where it's coming from. Calm down. And number 2, if you have to take this and your life improves and you're doing all the work, so be it. So be it. So he says, I'm telling you this after 5 years of battling. Rabbi Gerzi, when can I stop? Rabbi Gerzi, when can I stop? We can do a 3-week experiment, but I don't think it will work out. And it didn't work out. He regressed, but when he's on it, he's happier. He feels a lot more yashar. His wife is happier, his kids are happier, and he's engaged in the work. He's engaged in cold plunges, he's engaged in intermittent fasting, he's engaged in meditation, he's engaged in yichudim, he's engaged in Habbatah, he's engaged in all the crutches. But I can tell you, he doesn't need any of them. He does it for the very simple sake that he wants to do it. It's a conscious choice. And when he does get plagued, he's got people around him because he's doing the work and he's being transparent that support him and help him. Life doesn't just revolve around my daladamos. There's people around us who love us, support us, care for us. So we can tolerate because our emphasis is very simple. Let's upgrade people's lives. And it's the same with us. Coming back to this nukuda, it's the same with us. This process gives me a sense of freedom, a sense of clarity. It seems easier to engage in that which I am doing. I'm empowered to choose the life I want to be living without being held back by my thoughts, feelings, or physical sensation. I'll say in an unhealthy way. Previously, I was convinced that these modes of expression are real, which we said before that They are real, but there's another dimension where they are, I don't say not real, but what's another word? They are flexible, thank you. However, now I know that I do not need to give authority to these not so helpful, hopeful, or healthy expressions. It is true to say that this growth and transition is happening naturally and gradually. Even within a few weeks of just listening to these profound teachings and asking simple questions, I'm noticing a defined difference in my experience of living and in the way I meet moments during the day. A thought might tell me to do something a particular way, and then I can catch it and say, no, I want to do it this way. So, okay, last questions, if there's any questions. Yes?
When the Rab says we can have a thought and we can say hello to this thought, we can say hello to this feeling, what is the function of saying hello to it?
Acknowledging, being aware and doing something to acknowledge it.
To give it a closure. I recognize that you're there, thought.
The reason why we're saying hello is the same reason if you see somebody and you just are silent. It's not necessarily so pleasant. So with our nefesh, it's the same. It's the same mechanism. It's giving it its space and respect. It's the same mechanism. It's being heard, correct. It's the same mechanism between the das and the nefesh. Okay. If I can invite you, just take a minute. Take a minute and just allow whatever we have shared today to percolate. And maybe just even to share with you, just trust the process. Trust the process. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will reveal to me what I need to reveal. And just thank your nefesh, thank the ego self, doing a marvelous job. Thank the ruach, thank consciousness, doing a marvelous job. And thank neshama, Baruch Shem, doing a marvelous job. And may we build a relationship that we're together, parts of, that we can work together, build together. Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. What we'll do, if I can ask you to, this thing, and we'll then do a breakup. Ba'atzlacha Rabbah.